They say a single act of kindness can change your life forever. For Rebecca Johnson, a hard-working waitress at the Blue Harbor Diner that moment, began on a slow Wednesday evening when a trembling teenager, pockets empty and eyes brimming with shame, sat at her station. What Rebecca did next would ripple far beyond a free plate of food. At a nearby table, an inconspicuous millionaire observed the scene. Little did anyone realize the connections forged that night would reshape their destinies in ways neither heartbreak nor triumph could predict. Buckle up for a true-to-life drama of hope, betrayal, and redemption. Rebecca Johnson's Wednesday had started the way most midweek shifts often did at the Blue Harbor Diner, quiet, save for the crackle of bacon and eggs on the griddle and the low hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Wedged between a used bookstore and a modest flower shop on Glenwood Avenue, the Blue Harbor Diner was the kind of place that catered to locals who knew each other by name and travelers who just wandered in off the highway. It was small, but cozy with vinyl booths patched by decades of duct-tape chipped coffee mugs that told local jokes and a long, polished counter dotted with stainless steel napkin holders. The diner rarely saw crowds on a Wednesday, so Rebecca spent most of her time wiping down tables and chatting with her co-worker, Cindy Laughlin, a sharp-witted waitress with curly red hair who had been slinging coffee there for 20 years. As soft jazz streamed from tinny speakers, Rebecca thought about her mounting bills. She was in her late 20s, living in a cramped one-bedroom apartment and paying off student loans that she had racked up for a nursing program she never got to finish. Life had thrown curve-balls, an ailing mother, unexpected rent hikes, a broken-down car, and that dream of becoming a nurse had slipped farther away each year. "Rebecca, you're drowning that rag," Cindy teased, catching her friend lost in thought. Rebecca realized she'd squeezed the same spot on the tabletop over and over, water pooling. She offered a sheepish grin. "Just tired, that's all," she admitted, smoothing down her worn apron. Around 8 o'clock, the door chimed. Rebecca glanced over, half expecting it to be just another local regular. Instead, she saw a slim teenage boy around 16 or 17, wearing a faded black hoodie and jeans that looked a size too small. He lingered near the entrance, scanning the booths, as if unsure whether he was even allowed to enter. Finally, he slipped into a seat in the corner near the window. Rebecca approached with a menu and forced her best smile. "Hey there. Welcome to the Blue Harbor. I'm Rebecca. Can I get you something to drink to start?" The boy's eyes darted around, never meeting hers, as if searching for an escape route. Water, please." Though the teen's voice was barely above a whisper, Rebecca sensed tension. He seemed exhausted, as if he hadn't eaten or slept properly for days. She placed a plastic cup of ice water in front of him, and without drawing attention, slipped him a small bread basket on the house. She saw his eyes widen momentarily before he took a piece of bread and tried to eat without looking too desperate. "Take a moment with the menu," she suggested gently. "I'll be back in a bit." What she didn't notice right away was the middle-aged man sitting 2 booths away, half hidden by a local newspaper. Wearing a modest sweater and jeans, he appeared no different from any other passerby. But behind those reading glasses was Michael Townsend, a venture capitalist rumored to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He was in town scouting new real estate opportunities. Tired of fancy steakhouses, he had asked his driver to stop by a simple diner. He wanted something normal, a break from power lunches and high-pressure meetings. But at that moment, he found himself intrigued by the quiet exchange unfolding between the young waitress and the nervous teenager. Rebecca returned to the teens' table after a few minutes, balancing her notepad. "So what'll it be?" He cleared his throat. Do you guys have a small burger or something?" She nodded. "We have a cheeseburger special that comes with fries if you'd like." He paused, clearly, calculating cost. Just the burger. No cheese, no fries." Rebecca didn't pry, but she recognized a familiar desperation. She had grown up in foster homes, cycling through hand-me-down clothes and discount lunches at school. She remembered the sting of hunger, the fear of asking for more than what was strictly necessary, and the embarrassment of being discovered as someone with empty pockets. "How about I bring you some fries, too?" she offered softly. "On the house. I'll make sure they don't charge extra." He glanced up at her for the first time. Brown eyes rimmed with exhaustion met hers. "Thank you," he said so quietly she almost didn't hear it. When she walked away, Michael Townsend kept his eyes on the scene. He recognized that look in the waitress's face, genuine empathy, a willingness to do good in a small but profound way. People in his circles often made charitable donations through foundations or at black-tie galas. But this was different. This was raw and real. While the teen waited, Rebecca swiftly told the cook, Bob, to make one burger with fries. She'd pay the difference if the diner insisted. As she picked up a pot of coffee prepared to make her usual rounds, she saw Michael Townsend wave for a refill. Despite being well known in certain financial circles, he appeared unremarkable here. "More coffee?" she asked. "Yes, please," Michael said, offering a small smile. "Thank you." He watched her fill the cup. "It's a quiet night," he commented. She nodded. "It's always like this midweek," she replied simply, not catching any note of recognition. "Is there anything else I can get you?" Michael shook his head politely. "I'm fine. That young man over there, your friend Rebecca, hesitated. Not sure why he was asking. I've never met him. He just came in. He seems in need of a good meal." Michael nodded, looking at his coffee. "Kindness is rare these days. It's nice to see." Rebecca gave a slight shrug, a bit flustered. "We've all needed a little kindness at some point." As she returned to the teen's booth with the burger and fries, plus a small side of coleslaw, the boy's face brightened like a kid on Christmas morning. He mumbled another thanks before devouring the meal with the urgency of someone who wasn't sure when his next one might come. 40 minutes later, after the boy had slowed down enough to savor the last few fries, Rebecca brought the bill discreetly. It was just under $10, courtesy of some staff discount maneuvers. As she expected, he looked nervous. He opened his wallet to reveal only a few battered dollar bills, enough maybe for half the meal if he left no tip. Rebecca's heart sank. He looked at her with a blend of gratitude and sheer panic. "I don't have enough." Rebecca gently took the check from his trembling hand and placed it face down on the table. "It's okay. I'll handle it." "No, I can't." He started to protest, but Rebecca shook her head. "I remember what it's like to be hungry and short on cash. Don't worry. Just take care of yourself." Tears threatened at the corners of his eyes. "Thank you, really. My name's Tyler Mendez. I was looking for a job nearby, but I haven't had much luck." Rebecca wrote her name on a napkin. "Ask for me if you come back." But next time, she teased gently. "Maybe bring a few bucks." They shared a small laugh. Tyler nodded and left, holding his hoodie tight around him as he disappeared into the chilly night. Rebecca sighed and took the check up to the counter, prepared to pay the difference from her tips. She didn't notice Michael Townsend standing there until his voice drifted into the hush of the diner. "Add that to my tab, please, and ring me up." Rebecca blinked. "Oh, that's not necessary at all." Michael handed a platinum credit card to the cashier. "Please," he insisted calmly. "I'd like to." Cindy, who was manning the register for a moment, looked at him curiously. "Your total will be $21.87, plus the teens burger. That's another $9.50 or so. Are you sure?" He nodded without hesitation. "Yes." Rebecca felt her face flush. She wasn't used to receiving kindness in return. She fidgeted with the strap of her apron. "Thank you. I appreciate it. That was sweet of you." Michael didn't elaborate. He simply gave Rebecca a friendly nod and scribbled his signature on the receipt. After a final sip of his coffee, he left the diner, stepping out into the darkness of Glenwood Avenue with the same unassuming composure he'd shown inside. Rebecca thought that was the end of it. People came and went, and the diner was rarely a stage for life-changing encounters. Still, she felt warm inside, a glimmer of hope stirred by the fact that even though she had covered Tyler's meal, a stranger had stepped in to shoulder her cost. Maybe the world wasn't as harsh as she sometimes believed. But later that night, after closing up, she returned to her apartment to find a final eviction notice pinned to her door. She'd scrambled to pay rent in partial installments, but the landlord, Mr. Donovan, known for his impatience, had reached his limit. She had 3 days to pay the balance or be out. She stared at the notice, her hands trembling. She had a double shift on Saturday that might earn her some tips, but it wouldn't be enough to cover all the debt. Inside, her mother, Patricia Johnson, was asleep on the living room couch. A chronic illness had forced her to give up her housekeeping job the previous year, leaving Rebecca to shoulder all expenses. The hospital bills alone were enormous. Rebecca quietly approached her mother and adjusted the blanket. She recalled the promise she'd made to herself to never let her mother slip into the same desperation they had known in her childhood. But it felt like the past was creeping up on her all over again. Crestfallen, she retreated to her small bedroom with peeling wallpaper. She took off her apron and rummaged through a shoebox of old receipts and pay stubs, trying to see if there was any way to gather enough money in 3 days. It seemed impossible. She had no choice but to prepare for the worst, lose the apartment, or find a miracle. Just as the sun rose the next day, painting the sky with pale pink and orange streaks, Rebecca's phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Normally, she would let such calls go to voicemail, especially if she suspected it was a debt collector. But a peculiar instinct told her to pick up. "Hello," she said, barely suppressing a yawn. "Ms. Johnson." "Rebecca Johnson," a female voice asked politely. "Yes, this is she." "Good morning. I'm calling from Townsend Ventures. My name is Amanda Gray, Mr. Michael Townsend's personal assistant. He met you at the Blue Harbor Diner last night, I believe." Rebecca sat up in bed, confusion tangling her thoughts. Yes. Is everything okay?" "Absolutely. Townsend was impressed by your kindness last night, and he'd like to invite you to a luncheon. He's hosting a small business event this afternoon at the Redwood Hotel. He asked if you could attend." A luncheon. Me. She almost laughed from sheer disbelief. "I'm just a waitress." Amanda's tone remained professional but friendly. "Mr. Townsend is known for championing individuals who exhibit exceptional compassion and honesty. He'd love to chat with you. He specifically asked to extend this invitation to you. Could you come at noon? Rebecca was speechless. She glanced at her clock. 8:15 a.m. She had a shift starting at 10, but she could ask Cindy to cover for a few hours. The Redwood Hotel was about a 15-minute bus ride away. All right. She managed her heart pounding. I'll be there. She ended the call and stared at the wall for a minute. What on earth could a millionaire want with her? Part of her hesitated. Maybe it was some bizarre scam. But Townsend Ventures was a legitimate firm she'd heard of in passing. And Michael Townsend seemed genuine enough. She decided to take the risk. Maybe, just maybe, this could be the miracle she needed. That afternoon, Rebecca found herself in front of the Redwood Hotel, a grand structure with sparkling glass doors and a lavish lobby. She felt painfully out of place in her best black pants and a simple blouse, which were all she could afford that looked semi-formal. The doorman greeted her with a friendly nod. Inside, Amanda Gray welcomed her with a warm smile. She was a tall woman in a sharp business suit carrying an iPad. Ms. Johnson. Right this way, please. Rebecca was led through a series of conference rooms until they reached a private dining hall. A small group of about 10 people business executives, real estate developers, and local entrepreneurs mingled around a cluster of polished tables. At one end of the room, near a large window that overlooked the cityscape, stood Michael Townsend. He wore a crisp navy suit, far from the casual sweater and jeans she had seen him in before. Rebecca, so glad you could come. He greeted her, offering a handshake. She nodded politely, still puzzled. Thank you for inviting me. He guided her to a seat at one of the round tables. The centerpieces were elaborate arrangements of white roses, and each place setting had gold-trimmed plates. The entire setup felt surreal, a stark contrast from the diner's vinyl booths and her chipped coffee mugs. I won't keep you in suspense, Michael began once they were seated. I was deeply moved by what I saw last night. You showed genuine compassion to a young man who needed help. It may seem like a small deed, but it speaks volumes about your character. Rebecca shifted uncomfortably. It wasn't a big deal, really. He was hungry, and I've been there before. Anyone would have done the same. Michael's eyes were steady. You'd be surprised how many people would turn a blind eye. In my line of work, I meet countless professionals who obsess over margins, profit, and image. Yet genuine kindness often gets lost in the chase for success. Then he made an offer that rendered her speechless. I'm developing a new initiative called Project Upstart. It's geared toward helping individuals who display resilience and altruism, people who might not have the opportunities they deserve. I'd like to sponsor your education or career development in whatever direction you see fit. Rebecca blinked. You mean pay for schooling? Michael nodded. Yes, if that's what you want. Or perhaps you want to open a small business. We can discuss the possibilities. Emotions collided inside her relief excitement and a deep skepticism that this could be too good to be true. She thought about her mother's medical bills and the looming eviction. She thought about how she'd dreamed of becoming a nurse, how she'd always wanted to help people beyond delivering plates of burgers. I don't know what to say, Rebecca stammered. This is an incredible offer. Michael gently smiled. We'll work out details later. But consider it a gesture from someone who believes in second chances and in rewarding goodness. Over the next hour, they talked in more detail about the Project Upstart concept. Michael explained that he wanted to give scholarships or grants to people who had proven their empathy in tangible ways, but who lacked the means to pursue their ambitions. He believed that fostering kindness was just as important as fostering innovation. By the end of the luncheon, Rebecca found herself shaking hands with other business people she never expected to meet. Amanda Gray gave her some forms to fill out, as well as contact information to schedule a formal meeting. Walking out, Rebecca felt like she was on a cloud. Could her dire circumstances really change overnight? The next day, Rebecca arranged a meeting with her landlord, Mr. Donovan, hoping to negotiate an extra week. She held a printout of Michael Townsend's new initiative in her hand, planning to reassure her landlord that money was coming. But Donovan was as unyielding as stone. "I've heard every excuse in the book. If you can't pay by tomorrow, you're out. The building's up for renovations anyway, and I want everyone out who's behind on rent." Rebecca's pleas fell on deaf ears. This wasn't the first time she'd met a person who refused to see beyond their own self-interest. Walking away from Donovan's office, she felt her heart sink. She hadn't yet received any official funding from Townsend, and even if she did, it might take time. With tears in her eyes, she took the bus back to her apartment to begin packing. When she arrived, she found an ambulance outside. Panic clutched her chest. She rushed up the stairs and saw 2 paramedics wheeling out her mother on a gurney. "Rebecca," Patricia said weakly. "I tried to stand and I lost my balance." Rebecca's mind raced. She had no money, an eviction notice, and now her mother needed emergency care. She accompanied her mother in the ambulance, feeling the fragile tapestry of her life unraveling all at once. At the hospital, doctors told her that Patricia had broken her hip. She needed immediate surgery, which they recommended in the next 48 hours for the best outcome. Though her mother's condition was stable, the potential cost loomed. Rebecca was uncertain how she would pay for it. She contacted the Project Upstart coordinator, leaving a frantic voicemail about the situation, hoping Michael Townsend might step in. 2 days passed in a haze of medical forms and tearful hospital visits. Rebecca was officially locked out of her apartment. Her belongings had been piled into a friend's garage a few blocks away. She took unpaid leave from the diner to stay by her mother's side, but she had to keep afloat somehow. Michael Townsend finally called her back personally. "Rebecca, I'm sorry to hear about your mother's accident," he said, voice heavy with concern. "Project Upstart funds usually take time to allocate since we go through a board review. However, I'll expedite a portion of the funds." Relief coursed through her. "Thank you so much, Mr. Townsend. You have no idea." He cleared his throat. "There's something else. My father, who founded Townsend Ventures, always believed in direct involvement. I own a residential property in town, mostly used for short-term business stays. It's fully furnished. You and your mother can stay there temporarily until you find stable footing." Tears of gratitude welled in Rebecca's eyes. She was speechless for a moment. "That's more than generous. Thank you. Truly." But not everyone saw it as an altruistic move. Cindy, her friend from the diner, expressed caution. "Girl, be careful. Powerful men don't just hand out free housing. Are you sure there aren't strings attached?" Rebecca knew the concerns were valid, but her gut told her Michael Townsend's intentions were genuine. He hadn't asked for anything in return, only that she keep him updated on her mother's recovery and her future plans. Michael's assistant, Amanda, arranged for movers to gather Rebecca's things from her friend's garage and take them to the Townsend property on Birchwood Lane. To say the place was a step up from her old apartment would be a gross understatement. It was a modest two-bedroom house, but it had everything: comfortable furniture, a clean kitchen, and even a small garden in the backyard. For the first time in years, Rebecca had a space where she didn't feel suffocated by financial and emotional burdens. Her mother, still hospitalized, was scheduled for surgery that evening. Since the hospital had to confirm payment, Michael personally contacted the billing department, assuring them that Townsend Ventures would cover the procedure in full. It felt like stepping into another dimension. For so long, Rebecca's life had been a tangle of constraints, but now doors were swinging open. However, not all was calm. A man in a dark sedan began appearing in her peripheral vision. She noticed him parked across the street more than once. At first, she thought it was just a neighbor or a random passerby. But one evening, as she returned from the hospital, the same dark sedan trailed her taxi for a few blocks. When she finally stepped out in front of the Birchwood Lane home, the car continued rolling by slowly, its driver concealed by tinted windows. A shiver of unease traveled down her spine. Who could be watching her? The next afternoon, while Rebecca was inside the Birchwood Lane house preparing soup for her mother, who was scheduled to be discharged in 2 days, she heard a knock at the door. Peering through the window, she saw a familiar face from the diner. Tyler Mendez, the teenager she had given a free meal. He looked more put together this time, wearing slightly cleaner clothes, and he clutched a small envelope in his hand. "Hey," she greeted, opening the door, her voice tinged with surprise. "How did you find me?" He looked embarrassed. "I asked Cindy where you lived. She mentioned you moved to this place. I wanted to pay you back for the burger that night." Rebecca's heart warmed. She shook her head gently. "It's okay. You don't owe me anything." Tyler fumbled with the envelope. "I got a small part-time gig at a coffee shop. It's not much, but I wanted to give you something." She stepped aside to let him in. "You can come in. And thank you." "That's very thoughtful." He handed her the envelope, which contained $20. "I know it's not a lot, but I'll keep giving you what I can until it's paid off." Rebecca smiled. "I don't want you to worry about that. I'm just glad you're on your feet. How's it going? You said you were looking for work." They chatted for a few minutes, and Tyler revealed that he was living with his aunt after leaving a difficult foster situation. He was planning to finish high school next year. A wave of empathy rushed over Rebecca. She'd walked a similar path. Just then, Michael Townsend arrived unexpectedly. He was there to drop off some documents regarding her mother's insurance coverage. As soon as Tyler saw Michael, his eyes widened, and he stammered a goodbye, quickly leaving before Rebecca could introduce them. She found it odd. Michael stepped in, a large envelope in hand. "Hope I'm not interrupting. I had a meeting nearby and thought I'd drop these off." She thanked him again. But something in Michael's demeanor seemed off. He looked preoccupied. His cell phone rang, and he checked the caller ID, sighing before sending it to voicemail. "Everything okay?" Rebecca asked. He forced a tight smile. "Just complications at the office." She tried to read him, but Michael Townsend was skilled at keeping a neutral expression. He changed the subject back to the insurance documents, detailing how her mother's recovery costs would be covered. That evening, the dark sedan circled the block again. Though Rebecca's life seemed to be improving, an undercurrent of tension wove through her days. Michael was helping her at every turn, covering her mother's medical bills, giving them a place to stay, promising a future scholarship for nursing school. But something else was brewing. She sensed a guardedness in Michael, as though a shadow from his past was creeping into the present. She decided to do a quick online search of Michael Townsend, curious to learn more about him. Articles praised him as a self-made mogul From a modest background, he rose to success through wise investments and philanthropic endeavors. But then she stumbled on a lesser-known blog, claiming that Townsend Ventures had faced a lawsuit a year ago from a disgruntled former partner, Paul Strickland. The case involved accusations of unethical business practices. The lawsuit was eventually dismissed, but the blog post alleged that Strickland had sworn revenge. The next morning, after finishing her coffee, she stepped outside to check the mailbox. A folded note had been slid under the door. It read, "You have no idea who you're dealing with. Stay out of Townsend's affairs if you know what's good for you." Rebecca's heart leapt into her throat. Her first instinct was to call Michael, but a flicker of caution made her hesitate. Could it be that he was somehow involved in dangerous dealings? Or was this the work of Paul Strickland, or some other rival trying to frighten her? She decided to text Michael a simple message. "Got a strange note." "Everything okay?" he replied swiftly. "I'll send someone from my security team to check it out." A sense of dread churned in her stomach. Where was this heading? As if the drama wasn't enough. Tyler reappeared a few days later. This time, his face was bruised, and a fresh cut marred his lip. He paced anxiously on the front porch until Rebecca let him in. "My aunt kicked me out," he admitted, voice shaky. "Things got rough. I was defending my friend from some older guys, and she said I was bringing trouble home. I got nowhere to go again." Rebecca's nurturing instincts kicked in. She led him to the living room, offered him a glass of water, and carefully dabbed antiseptic on his lip. "If you need a place to stay tonight, you can take the couch," she offered, mindful that Michael technically owned this property. But she couldn't turn Tyler away. He nodded, clearly grateful. "I'll leave in the morning. I didn't know where else to go." That night she found a blanket for Tyler and laid it out on the sofa. With her mother recuperating in the hospital, the house was quiet except for the ticking clock. She felt uneasy about defying Michael's generosity by allowing someone else to stay, but she resolved that kindness must come first. Morning arrived with another surprise. As Rebecca prepared breakfast for Tyler, Michael's driver suddenly appeared at the door, bringing a large fruit basket and a note from Michael apologizing for not visiting her mother earlier in the week. The driver, an older man named Carlos, seemed unfazed by Tyler's presence, though he raised an eyebrow. He simply left the fruit basket, nodded politely, and departed. Tyler, who had been devouring the cereal Rebecca gave him, looked at her with wary eyes. "You sure this Townsend guy is legit?" Rebecca frowned. "Why do you ask?" "Because that name, Townsend, my father used to mention him. Something about real estate deals in this city that forced families out of their homes. Could be rumors, I guess." His words planted another seed of doubt in Rebecca's mind. As much as Michael had helped her, she could see how people might blame him for gentrification and displacements, whether or not he was directly responsible. Money, power, and altruism don't always align neatly. She recalled how her own building was sold to new developers, culminating in her eviction. What if Townsend had had a hand in that? She brushed aside the thought for the moment. She refused to believe that the same man who had shown her such compassion could be ruthless. But the note threatening her to stay out of his affairs lingered like a poison in her thoughts. Later that day, after Tyler left to search for more stable housing options, a man in a grey suit appeared at the door. He had sharp features, thinning hair, and an unsettling grin. "Ms. Johnson." "My name is Paul Strickland." He introduced himself, his voice smooth as silk. He extended a business card that read, Strickland and Associates, Legal and Consulting. Alarm bells rang in Rebecca's mind. This was the same name she had found in that old blog post. "What can I do for you?" she asked with forced politeness. He gave a dismissive chuckle. "I'm here to warn you. Michael Townsend is not who you think he is. I was his former business partner. Let's just say he has a habit of using people for good publicity, turning them into poster children for his philanthropic facade." Rebecca stood her ground. "With all due respect, Mr. Townsend's help has been very real to me. I have no reason to doubt his intentions." Strickland's grin curled into a sneer. "Well, I'll leave you with this," he said, pulling out a slim manila folder. "A little bedtime reading. Bank records, property, deeds, and lawsuits that will show you the true face of Townsend Ventures. If you want to protect yourself, you'll keep your distance from him. Because when he's finished with you, you'll be nothing but another sob story in the tabloids." He shoved the folder into her hands, turned on his heel, and left. Rebecca's legs shook. She wasn't sure if Strickland was telling the truth or just trying to manipulate her against Michael. The lines between ally and antagonist were becoming alarmingly blurred. That evening, Rebecca sat at the small kitchen table, the folder open in front of her. Page after page contained legal documents, claims of forced evictions, zoning manipulations, and allegations of underhanded business tactics. While many were dismissed or settled out of court, the sheer volume rattled her. Some documents bore Michael Townsend's signature. She felt nauseous. Could it be that this man who had rescued her from homelessness and covered her mother's surgery was responsible for creating situations that drove others into desperation? At the hospital, Patricia's surgery had gone smoothly. She needed a few more days of observation, but her doctors were optimistic. Rebecca was thankful for that. A pang of guilt stabbed her. Who was she to question Michael's kindness given all he'd done? Yet she couldn't ignore the threatening note or the dark sedan tailing her. Was Michael simply protecting her from old enemies like Strickland? Or were they trying to silence her before she discovered something damning? That night, Rebecca mustered the courage to call Michael directly. She explained that she needed to talk. He arranged to meet her at a quiet cafe the following morning. She arrived first, sipping a chai latte as her anxiety gnawed. Michael appeared soon after, looking fatigued. Despite his impeccable suit, faint circles under his eyes suggested he was under enormous stress. "I won't beat around the bush," she began, her voice quivering. "I had a visit from Paul Strickland. He gave me a folder of documents. It looks bad. And I've been seeing a dark sedan outside the house. Someone also left me a threatening note." Michael sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. "I was hoping you wouldn't get caught in the crossfire. Strickland is obsessed with destroying me. We were partners once. He wanted to buy up distressed neighborhoods and flip them into high-end properties. I disagreed with his approach when it came to forcibly evicting tenants. We parted ways, but he tried to sue me, claiming I stole his idea. The case went nowhere, but since then he's been determined to bring me down." He reached for her hand, but she instinctively pulled away. "Rebecca, you have to trust me. Yes, I've been involved in real estate deals that led to changes in certain neighborhoods. Some call it gentrification. But I never allowed forced evictions. My name, however, appears on many documents, simply because I was a partner or investor at the time. I parted ways with Strickland because I didn't want to ruin lives for profit." Her eyes welled with tears. "So the stuff in the folder Much of it is twisted or taken out of context. Some lawsuits were from people upset about property values changing. Others were orchestrated by Strickland. I've settled cases to avoid protracted legal battles. Trust me, if I were truly the monster he claims, would I have gone this far to help you?" She searched his eyes for sincerity. Everything about him radiated a pained honesty. "What about the threatening note telling me to stay out of your affairs?" Michael looked alarmed. "You got a threat like that? That's not from me or my people. That might be Strickland or his associates trying to scare you off or scare you into turning against me." Silence fell. Rebecca wanted to believe him, but the fear lingered. Finally, she nodded slowly. "I just want to make sure my mother is safe. And if I accept your scholarship, I don't want to be a pawn in some public relations game." Michael softened. "You're not. I promise. Let me assign a security detail for you and your mother until Strickland is neutralized. I'm genuinely trying to improve lives, not destroy them." Reluctantly, she agreed to extra security, even though the idea made her uneasy. The last thing she wanted was to live under constant surveillance, but if it kept her mother safe, it might be worth it. Days turned into weeks. Patricia was released from the hospital and moved into the Birchwood Lane home, grateful for the comfortable space. Physical therapy appointments lined up, all covered by Townsend Ventures. Despite the swirling suspicions, Michael's actions consistently showed real care. Tyler Mendez popped in occasionally, offering small payments for the burger. Rebecca tried to refuse, but he insisted. He seemed determined to right his life's course. With gentle encouragement, Rebecca urged him to return to school. He finally agreed to start classes again the following semester, albeit part-time, and keep his job at the coffee shop. Meanwhile, Rebecca's own dream of completing nursing school reignited. Project Upstart arranged for her to apply to a nearby community college with a strong nursing program. An acceptance letter arrived one crisp morning, sending her heart soaring. She had only a few prerequisites remaining before she could enter clinical rotations. The idea of balancing it all, work, caring for her mom, and now a potential threat from Strickland, felt daunting. But hope overshadowed the fear. Then, in an unexpected twist, Strickland confronted her again. This time, catching her on her walk home from the diner one late evening shift she had taken to earn some extra pocket money. He cornered her near an alley. "You still think Townsend is your savior?" he hissed, eyes flashing. "He'll bury you the moment you're no longer useful to him." Rebecca tried to push past, but he grabbed her arm. She wrested it free, adrenaline spiking. "Stay away from me." Strickland laughed darkly. "Keep playing naive. Let's see how far your kindness goes when the real truth comes out." He stalked off, leaving her shaken. A week later, national headlines erupted with a scandal: Townsend Ventures under federal investigation for embezzlement. The coverage implied that Project Upstart might be a front to launder money. Michael Townsend was nowhere to be found publicly. Amanda Gray tried to reassure the Project Upstart participants that all scholarships were still valid, but the sense of doom weighed heavily. Rebecca's phone blew up with messages from friends who'd seen the news. Her mother was distraught, fearing that the medical bills might suddenly be unpaid. Tyler was equally concerned, asking if Townsend's money had been dirty all along. In a panic, Rebecca tried contacting Michael. His phone went straight to voicemail. She dialed Amanda's number. "He's dealing with a legal crisis," Amanda explained, her voice tight. "We'll update you soon. In the meantime, we have to freeze some accounts, including the funds for your mother's treatment." "I'm so sorry, Rebecca." It felt as if the ground had disintegrated beneath her feet. She had pinned her hopes on Michael's support, but now that lifeline seemed to be slipping away. She raced to the hospital to speak with the billing department. They confirmed that Townsend Ventures had halted payments. Rebecca's mother still needed follow-up procedures, and the sudden freeze could jeopardize everything. Desperate for answers, Rebecca remembered that Michael had once mentioned the Redwood Hotel as a frequent meeting spot. She decided to try her luck. Scouring the downtown area, she eventually found Townsend's driver, Carlos, in the parking lot. "Where is he?" she demanded. "I need to talk to Michael." Carlos looked anxious, but recognized her desperation. He lowered his voice. "He's in the penthouse suite, but security has orders not to let anyone up without clearance." Rebecca's mind raced. She had to get to Michael somehow. She convinced Carlos to take her up in the service elevator, playing on the fact that she was the reason Michael had assigned him to protect her in the first place. Hesitantly, he agreed. Once in the penthouse hallway, she knocked on the door. No answer. She tried again, louder. Finally, the door opened, revealing Michael with disheveled hair and a hollow expression. "Rebecca, you shouldn't be here," he muttered, stepping aside to let her in. Tension saturated the air. She saw documents scattered across the coffee table, half-empty coffee cups, and a TV muted on a financial news channel. "Explain, please. Is the investigation true? Is everything falling apart?" Her voice cracked with emotion. Michael sank into the couch, burying his face in his hands for a moment before speaking. "There was an internal fraud scheme by one of my CFOs. Money was moved around illegally, and I had no idea until it was too late. The feds are investigating. All my company's accounts are frozen. I'm basically powerless until my legal team can prove my innocence." Rebecca's eyes stung with tears. "My mother's bills." "I know," he whispered. "I'm sorry. I never intended for this to happen. My lawyers are trying to get emergency funds released for humanitarian cases, but it's complicated." She stood there, the heartbreak of betrayal and frustration igniting within her. "What am I supposed to do now, Michael? You swooped in, gave me hope, and now everything's in jeopardy." He looked up at her, despair shadowing his features. "I can't fix this overnight. You have to trust me. I'm innocent, and I'll fight this. Once the freeze is lifted, I'll settle your mother's bills. Until then, I have nothing." She felt torn between rage and empathy. Here was a man who had shown her more kindness than anyone in her life, yet he had also, intentionally or not, placed her in an even more precarious position. 3 agonizing weeks passed. The scandal boiled in the media. Strickland appeared on interviews, casting Michael as a manipulative mogul. The feds continued their investigation, combing through every transaction. Rebecca nearly lost hope, but during this period, Tyler took an active role in helping her. He launched a small crowdfunding campaign for her mother's medical expenses, using social media to spread the story of the kind waitress who had helped him in his time of need. Donations trickled in, at first, then surged when local news picked up the story. Meanwhile, the hospital agreed to place a temporary hold on Patricia's bills, primarily because of the public attention. People from the diner, including Cindy, pitched in. It was a grassroots wave of support that reminded Rebecca kindness begets kindness. Even though Michael's corporate funds were tied up, the community stepped forward. One morning, Rebecca found a large envelope on her porch. Inside was a cashier's check for $20,000, along with a short note. "Don't lose hope. MT." She blinked in disbelief. How had he managed this? Wasn't everything frozen? Did he liquidate a personal asset, or was it stashed away in a private account? The money was enough to cover her mother's immediate medical needs and secure a more permanent place to live if they needed to move out of the Birchwood Lane property. Gratitude flooded her. Despite the swirling accusations, Michael hadn't abandoned her. In a dramatic turn of events, the FBI raided Strickland's office. News broke that Paul Strickland had planted false evidence against Michael Townsend to overshadow his own illegal dealings. Investigators found doctored bank statements indicating that Strickland, not Townsend, had orchestrated embezzlement through Townsend Ventures by forging documents to implicate Michael. The scandal flipped on its head as Strickland was arrested. Within a week, Townsend Ventures was exonerated. Funds were unfrozen. Employees breathed a sigh of relief, and Michael Townsend held a press conference. Tears pricked Rebecca's eyes as she watched on TV. "I'm grateful to the authorities for uncovering the truth." Michael stated, his voice steady yet emotional. "My mission remains to uplift communities and support individuals who embody compassion. Project Upstart will continue stronger than ever." Rebecca's phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Meet me at the diner tonight." That evening, the Blue Harbor Diner was surprisingly bustling for a Wednesday. Word had spread that Michael Townsend might show up, and curious onlookers filled the booths. Rebecca slipped in quietly, taking a seat near the spot where Tyler had once sat, broke and hungry. Moments later, Michael arrived, his manner calm. He apologized to the diner's owner for any inconvenience caused by the impromptu media interest. Then he spotted Rebecca and joined her. The chatter around them subsided as people tried to eavesdrop. "You stood by me," he said softly, reaching across the table to take her hand. "Even when everything looked grim, you tried to understand." She smiled, though tears rimmed her eyes. "I did doubt you at times, but seeing how you never wavered in helping me, I had to believe there was more to the story." Michael leaned forward. "I want to fully fund your nursing education and help you settle your mother's medical needs so you never have to worry again." Rebecca's voice trembled. "Thank you, but I'm not just a charity case. I need you to know that." He smiled gently. "I know, but consider this a partnership. Once you graduate, maybe you can oversee a healthcare initiative in underserved areas. Let's do something that helps more people like Tyler, or any teen who might walk into a diner hungry and alone." She laughed through tears. "I'd love that." Over the next few months, life found a fragile new normal. Patricia's health improved under consistent care. Tyler enrolled in high school part-time while juggling his coffee shop job. Rebecca began nursing school, her tuition and expenses covered. Michael Townsend proved that Project Upstart was more than just a PR gimmick. It funded numerous scholarships for people who had displayed extraordinary acts of kindness in their communities. Blue Harbor Diner became somewhat famous for its connection to this story. Locals relished the tale of how a waitress's small gesture covering a meal for a broke teenager had led to an unfolding drama of betrayal, loyalty, and ultimately redemption. Cindy joked that they should rename the cheeseburger special to the Townsend in honor of the man who watched it all unfold from a corner booth. As for Rebecca and Michael, they remained close. Whether it was a friendship partnership or something deeper, they both understood that their bond had been forged through adversity and kindness. Though the threat from Strickland had dissipated, they had learned a powerful lesson. The purest forms of generosity often shine brightest in life's darkest corners. And one day, when a new teenager in tattered clothes appeared at the diner, hesitating before ordering the staff knew exactly what to do, because kindness had become their legacy. A legacy that would endure long after the drama had faded from the headlines. Thank you for joining us on this roller coaster of compassion, betrayal, and redemption. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even the smallest act of kindness can spark a chain reaction, then spread the word. Share this video with friends and loved ones, letting them know how generosity transforms not just one life, but entire communities. Don't forget to hit the like button to show your support, and if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next deep dive into true life dramas that inspire hope. By being part of our YouTube family, you empower us to bring you more stories, showcasing the incredible, life-changing factor of empathy. Thank you again. And remember, kindness, no matter how small, can illuminate the darkest night. Keep shining, and we'll see you in the next video.